I'm Betty Mathias. I'm in the MSGDA program, and I received my bachelor's from Wichita State University.
I'm Nicole Choi. I'm in the MSGC program, and I received my bachelor's from Chapman University.
And I'm Paloma Boeck. I'm also in the MSGC program, and I received my bachelor's of science at San Francisco State.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I know you're all very busy studying and all, doing all the work that you have to do. So I'll start off with Betty. So the Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics program is very unique and, to our knowledge, the first of its kind in the United States. So what are your career goals and how does this program help you achieve those goals?
So I'll be completely honest with you. My career goals are pretty broad right now. I'm still exploring that further. I knew that when I was looking for a graduate program, I was looking for something that helped me bridge the gap between the research and application, because that's what I'm particularly passionate about. And so I saw this program and I liked the alternative approach to that, other than genetic counseling or just research in general. And so I was attracted to that. And through this program so far, there's a lot of different ways that it will guide me to be able to pick my career choice through, for example, the internships or being able to pick a concentration in the second year. And then also the classes. There's a broad range of classes, especially this first semester. And so it gives us a little bit of look into the different career paths.
Wonderful, thank you. So Paloma and Nicole, genetic counseling, also a very unique program, very unique and rewarding profession. So what led you to choose a career in genetic counseling?
Sure, I'll start. So what led me to a career in genetic counseling was that I was always passionate about healthcare. I spent a lot of time in hospitals with my family, and I saw providers that didn't treat my family so great with the level of care that they should have received. And it just kind of drove this force in me that I needed to make a difference in healthcare, but I didn't know what it was. So later down the line, I started to feel, I got my degree in biochemistry, and I started feeling a greater attraction towards genetics. And I started to contemplate, okay, well, there are careers as being a geneticist or genetic counselor. So I fortunately had the opportunity to shadow at Kaiser, and I saw both geneticists and genetic counselors. And what really resonated with me was the genetic counselor's role in compassion and the time that they spent with them. And that for me was the take-home message, that was my career.
Mine is less profound, but I just really love genetics. I had a huge passion for the nitty-gritty of genetics, and I knew that since high school. And going into my undergrad, I majored in biochemistry as well, and I took as many genetics courses as I could. And coming out of undergrad, I just knew that I wanted a job where I got to talk about genetics and get paid for it. And basically, I kind of stumbled upon genetic counseling and was like, oh, this is the job. And the more I learned about it, the more it resonated with who I was as a person, wanting to be a patient advocate and wanting to change some of the things in the system that I saw that could be improved, and wanting to do that from the inside out, as well as being able to have that significant patient provider connection and relationship, and that being a really important aspect of the job, and having that relationship with the people that you work with, and being able to have an impact on their lives was like a huge motivating factor for me as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So now that you've talked about exploring the career goals, what attracted you specifically to KGI?
So what attracted me specifically with the MSGDA program was when I was looking at other human genetics related master's degrees. A lot of them focused on research, and so the first thing that attracted me was that I would get to do an internship with experience instead of another, however many semesters in the lab. So that was a big deal for me, because I just wanted that experience. And then another thing was the flipped classrooms, because I love engaging in classrooms. I'm tired of listening to professors all the time, which sounds horrible. It's fun. It just opens up the classroom to be more talkative, and I feel like you communicate with your professors a lot better if you have a flipped classroom. And then the last one, I honestly can't remember, so next person.
me, I was really drawn to KGI just because of the huge emphasis on cultural competency, that being one of the big, like, has to have, like, incorporated into a program thing for me when I was looking at genetic counseling programs. And that was definitely a question I asked every program director I had the privilege of speaking to, is what kind of cultural competency measures do you have worked into your curriculum? And to have that at the forefront of just like the page on the KGI website about genetic counseling program, that was like a huge factor. I was like, this is very important to them, which is great because that's what's important to me. And the more I got to learn about the program, the more I found that program directors and the way that the program was set up agreed a lot with who I was as a person and how I learned and what was important to me as a student and then as a future genetic counselor. That was the big ticket items.
For myself, what initially attracted me to KGI was, first of all, like the location of the rotations. I thought that was really ideal. I was also really interested in the fact that it was housed inside of a pharmacy school. And yes, some genetic counseling programs do have pharmacy schools associated with them, but it's not a very close relationship. And the way that genetics is going right now, I feel that the roles are really going to become, the lines are going to become more blurred, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities in partnerships, and I really wanted to, have that ability to do that. So that was part of the reason. I also really like that it was really small. The school in general is really small, so you have a lot of opportunities to get scholarships, to stand out, to be a leader in this field. So those were initially what drew me in, but of course after interviewing, you just know that there's a big sense of community, and like that pulled me in right away.
Great, thank you. So the next question I'll direct to one genetic counseling student and then Betty, and then a GDA student on the panel. So I'll just do Nicole. Nicole and Betty, can you share what a typical day looks like when you have class?
So a typical day for the genetic counseling students, we have class generally sometime in the morning, no earlier than 9, thank God. And it can range to be in class till 4 or 5. We rarely have more than 2 classes a day. Yeah, I don't know. You wake up, you come to school, you go to class, and then after class, you're studying. Oh yeah, we also have those. We actually share a lot of classes with the MSGDA students.
For the MSGDA schedule, it's pretty similar to theirs. We do have, I think, potentially more group projects. So there's a few more group meeting type things integrated into your schedule. And then this also might be true for the genetic counseling students as well, but I know that our cohort is really small, and so we enjoy doing homework together. So I feel like half the time I'm doing homework, I'm doing it with the rest of my cohort, which is pretty fun for me. So.
That is the same for the genetic counseling students. Oh, we also do, we'll do like role plays outside of class, which is a really great opportunity to practice getting really difficult science concepts out of your mouth and learning to explain them in layman's terms. And we also practice taking each other's pedigrees. We've had pedigree parties, which are fun.
Can you explain what a pedigree is for those who might not know?
Sure. Pedigree is just it's a graphic representation that we often use in medicine to kind of standardize taking a family medical history.
Okay, so graduate school, there's a lot going on. You're just talking about your day. So what time management tips do you have for prospective students? Balancing work, school, social life, etc.
I would say get a hobby and stick to it. Truly, I truly mean that. It is so important for you to get into the habit of something that's going to help you ease the stress of what comes in with grad school. It is definitely the hardest thing I've ever encountered in my life. And for me, like, I used to do kickboxing, and that was kind of my net. And moving here, I had to quickly get back into something. And thankfully, I found an opportunity where you are away from your school and you're inside of a different type of zone and a different type of thinking. And that's so, so important. to make sure that you incorporate that mental wellness within every single day, and if not, at the very minimum, every single week. So you do have to manage very well, because a lot of the homework is learning on your own at home and then bringing it back to the classroom and teaching each other. So it is a huge time commitment, but I would definitely say you use that hobby and make sure you incorporate it and don't lose sight of that, but you do have to manage very strategically.
And I would add to that you also need to make sure and have your priorities right. So, and that can change like throughout the week. Like maybe on Monday night, my priority is not making dinner, so I have a frozen lasagna. That can change throughout the week. So that's one thing. And then the second thing too, I think that you always have something to do in grad school. You're never done. So when you reach that wall where you're not getting anything done because you're stressed or whatever, I think you need to learn that it's okay to give yourself a break. And maybe that's when you go and pursue your hobby for a few hours and then come back to it when you can be more efficient and refreshed. So I think that's something that you have to learn, but it's helpful.
For me, I like to, usually on Sunday nights, I will go through the syllabus for that week and I will write down what I need to do and what's expected of me. And then I also did, at the start of the semester, I wrote down where all the tests were so that I could strategically plan weekends where I didn't study. Carving out times that you dedicate to yourself and to taking care of yourself is so important. It doesn't have to be like whole weekends. Like during the week, I will not study while eating dinner, just so that I have that whole hour to talk to my roommate or watch a show on Netflix and just take a mental break. And then another thing that I did when it comes to just like taking care of yourself during grad school was that I got a therapist like right before grad school started, because I knew I was going to need that kind of mental health support. So just checking in with yourself and making sure you have the tools and resources available to you. For me, it was better to have it ahead of time, but once you're in it and you realize, okay, I need a little extra help, definitely don't be afraid to ask for it.
Thank you. I like that idea of scheduling time to not do something. I really like that. I've never heard that. So next question. What courses have you taken? Maybe you can mention one, since there's 3 of you. Have you taken thus far, and how have these courses helped you prepare for a career in genetics? So maybe one course that sticks out.
Sure. Molecular genetics.
Good answer.
Not with our professors here. To me, that's been a very different class from the rest of my classes, because it's a different level of thinking, where a lot of other classes are, in terms of, they're all very interactive, but it's a different understanding of the things at a very deep molecular level. And so when I'm hearing a condition and it has to do with like a mutation on P53 or something that I can relate it back to the molecular level, okay, I know what's going on, and it helps me retain that information better in terms of like how I can apply that as a genetic counselor.
I'm going to say genetic disease mechanisms, which is new this year, correct? No?
New instructors.
New instructors this year. Either way, the way the courses worked, the courses planned out, I feel like it's that one class that we have that connects all the concepts that we learn in literally all of our other classes in a super seamless, like very clinically applicable way. It's a nice, almost like review kind of built into the week.
And then for the MSGDA, I would say, not being able to mention the is our programming class in the first semester. And I think that allows us to look at the different ways that you can process this information. So that's a big part of the MSGDA. And so right now we're just exploring the different ways that you can pick apart information and like do analysis on it or draw conclusions.
Wonderful. Okay, so next question, what advice do you have for prospective students who are looking to apply to graduate school?
My advice is that if you have a passion, don't limit yourself to the most obvious answer, because I'll be honest, when I was I think junior, I was dead set that I was going to be a genetic counselor, but then as I looked through master's programs, I realized that that necessarily wasn't what my personality matched with. I'm more detail oriented and maybe not ethically responsible enough to be in a counseling environment, which is totally okay. But there's different ways to address your passion. And so I think that if you're looking around, you can see a lot of different options. And so I would just keep your options open. And then the second thing is that when you're looking at a really strong program, so I actually fell upon the MSGDA by looking at the genetic counseling program at Keck. So I think it's always good to look at sister programs because sometimes that'll both increase your efficiency as you're applying, but also you can find new and really cool things.
I would say my advice for applying to grad school in general is to map. I'm a big planner, so I mapped out like an arbitrary schedule for myself in preparing my graduate school applications, especially since for genetic counseling programs, the likelihood is that you will be applying to more than one program, and making sure that you submit the right amount of letters of rec to program A versus program B, and juggling different personal statements. So kind of having a plan laid out was really helpful for me. And then specifically to applying to genetic counseling programs, I would just say talk to as many genetic counseling students and genetic counselors who will talk to you, because just getting their perspective and insight is really informative on kind of shaping your ideas of what you want to be as a genetic counselor, thesis ideas, and everything in between.
One piece of advice that my mentor gave to me is make a Twitter and follow GC chat, because there's so much good information out there. A lot of genetic counselors use this as a tool, as a hashtag to kind of talk about what's going on in the field. And for me, that was really insightful. Like, oh, maybe I should look into the subject that genetic counselors are talking about, maybe bring it up in an interview. So that was really, really helpful for me. Something else I would say is embrace, your uniqueness and whatever makes you who you are. Your personal statement is, I think it's not an opportunity to regurgitate your CV. Use it as an opportunity to reflect who you really, really are and what your passions and your goals are, because you want to ultimately go to a program where your goals and your passions are going to be supported, and not that you have to come and become someone to fit in. So for me, that was kind of really, really important that KGI appreciated who I was and that I was honest and passionate and excited. And this is something that just aligned with my values.
Awesome. So we have quite a few questions from the audience. So can the panel share their experience with the genetic counseling match program? Any advice?
The match program is pretty straightforward. It's very user-friendly. I don't know. It's really great to not have to make such huge decisions all by yourself. It's nice to know that you have an algorithm on your side.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, it's kind of straightforward. You rank the schools how you feel. I would definitely say rank the schools that you feel most aligned with. Don't do it because, take into consideration everything in terms of cost, in terms of faculty. Think about everything, the big picture, not just about what you initially want. Be very open to changing your mind when you get a sense for the schools that you're applying to. Additionally, go do something for yourself on match day.
Oh yeah.
Don't go to work if you can, don't go to work. Or I was at Disneyland for mine because I wanted good news no matter what. So do something for yourself on match day. That's my advice.
I would also, the thing that I learned about the match system is that some programs have scholarship tracks and some have regular tracks. So if finance is a concern, you can rank all the scholarship tracks first and have that be something that plays into your decision, and then ranking the regular tracks. That was just something I learned during the process. Yeah.
So what are you looking at focusing on for your thesis project?
I'm going to do my thesis project. I'm going to try to look at the utilization and perceptions of genetic services in the Native Hawaiian population.
So I'm really, really passionate about mental illness and mental health. So I'm doing something with that aligned with Fragile X. I think that there's a lot of opportunities to grow with that. So I'm still currently exploring that, but I want to do something between that.
Okay, next question.
It's still very early.
I had been thinking about it for a while, and it was something that was part of my timeline in applying for grad school because I felt that like a lot of genetic counseling programs have very similar prerequisites, and so I wanted something that set me apart. And my advice from one of my mentors was to start thinking about my thesis, and if I could present an idea for my thesis, that was something that showed that I was committed to the field, but also was something different and memorable about me.
And next question, how many people are in the MSGC cohort?
15.
Yes.
What are some qualities or skills needed to be a genetic counselor?
I think that totally is a very, very wide spectrum. I can't say it's clear cut of what skills that you need, but there's definitely very similar qualities in terms of what we have. A lot of us are very, very empathetic, very good listeners to one another. We know that right away because we're able to vent to each other and tell each other what's going on, and it's very real and very honest. But yeah, it totally varies. Like some people, everyone brings their own unique skills. So I don't know.
I would agree. I think everyone comes from really different backgrounds. We have people who graduated with a business degree, people who have their prior like work experience was in marketing. I volunteered at a zoo for a summer. Like we all come from really random, different kind of previous experiences, and all of those experiences contribute to skills that make us all great genetic counselors.
Great. Where are the current genetic counseling students doing their rotations?
So that's a little complicated to answer because the rotations do, they change every 8 weeks. And so some students are at Cedars-Sinai, some have been at Ridley Tree Cancer Center. One student for the last rotation was at Global Gene, so it was not a necessarily direct patient interfacing, but it had to do with genetics advocacy, City of Hope, Kaiser Permanente. So the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, thank you. Fulgent, one of our students rotated there over the summer. So it really is in constant movement. Some private practices, as I had mentioned, in downtown Los Angeles, there's a private practice in Riverside. So our students really are all over the place, and that is based on both the site availability as well as really trying to tailor the experiences for students. All students do need to obtain a certain number of core, what we consider core genetic counseling cases, which have to do with cancer, reproductive, adult, and pediatrics. And so it is important to have a diversity of experiences in various practices. And as much as we can accommodate that, I do like to have all of our students participate in some type of quote unquote elective, whether that is in a laboratory setting or patient advocacy, something along those lines, if it certainly is possible.
Thank you for that. And the next question, what does KGI offer to students in terms of mental health and support? Especially for genetic counseling, and this would also apply to MSGDA, how do the directors, administrative teams support their students if they're overwhelmed or struggling?
One of the things that comes to mind, there is actually a club that we have on campus, and that is directly towards mental health. So you'll get more information about that during like orientation. They have like booths out and they'll provide information on that. I believe there's also like 6 free sessions of counseling on campus as well, but this is actually not at KGI, it's at one of the other Claremont colleges. Additionally, just I guess like reaching out to your representative if you have questions, because we do have student government representatives who are happy to hear about that and talk about that. And if you see that there's an opportunity, then that's what we're here for.
I will also say that your program directors often have really great office hours, and just going in and talking with them is really nice to feel validated and to know that they're very intuitive in listening to your concerns. And that's one of the really cool things that did draw me to KGI as being a new program, was that they're very receptive to student feedback and just checking in with all of us at some point during the semester.
I'm just gonna also add to that is that we do have a faculty mentorship set up. So twice a semester, we have our faculty mentors reach out to students to do check-ins. We have a community GC mentorship program. So we match essentially during orientation, we match up one student with one community mentor to provide just some additional services or just to have that access if ever wanted or needed. And then given so many changes in the program in such a short amount of time, I unfortunately am unable to be a faculty mentor, but what I love to do and what I did last year and what I'm continuing to do is reaching out to students on a one-on-one basis at various points in the semester just to touch base, see how the program's going, see how they're doing. So we do like to add just as much of a personal touch as we can amidst so much going on. And then additionally, as a part of KGI, we have really an incredible Office of Student Affairs, and they are really, really, really an incredible resource and an additional layer of support services.
And I'll just throw in there too, we also have a peer mentoring program. So every first year gets assigned a second year in both programs to help someone who's made it through months to give advice to the first year students.
Okay, so I live in San Diego, and if I get accepted at KGI, I would most likely commute. Do you think that would be possible?
Do you like your car? I mean, there are some extremely long days. I'll just, from my perspective, there are some extremely long days, and I'll certainly let the first years comment on what that could look like from their perspective, but I will speak for the second years, and as well as just knowing what our rotation sites look like, is that could be extraordinarily difficult to commute up to, Los Angeles, potentially daily. So for your clinical rotations.
I live about 40 minutes, no traffic from campus. And that's not bad, and I do enjoy my drive, but I do think that if it were any longer, I would have moved. It's nice because of the flipped classroom. I can often listen to the audio of a lot of the lectures, and it's a really nice time also for just being with myself and having a mental break. But I will say that having to work around traffic and doing the drive after you've been on campus for almost 8 hours is really rough. So something to consider.
With that said, I do always like to, whenever this comes up with some of our students, as well as, even for myself on really, really challenging days, is that these programs, it's temporary, right? The first year of the program is very course heavy. And then the minute that you've adjusted to the fall semester, it changes so dramatically. The schedule changes. And then, the schedule changes dramatically over the summertime and then throughout the course of the second year. So these are all very temporary things. And so it really just comes down to, I think, how much time you're willing to spend in your car, which could very easily from San Diego could easily be 3 hours one way.
Okay, getting a lot of questions. I'm just going to keep moving on here. Not sure when this question was asked, so maybe you can just briefly cover it again. But can you guys share why you chose KGI and what you loved about KGI when applying?
So yeah, I loved first that there was an internship versus the research. So I'm the MSGDA student, so I liked the internship versus research. And then I also loved the flipped classrooms. That was a huge deal breaker for me. It's also a beautiful and gorgeous location. I mean, compared to other places, who wants to go to Detroit? No. That was a big factor as well.
I liked that cultural competency was at the forefront of the program. I also liked that the program directors were very receptive and a lot of their philosophies aligned with a lot of my own philosophies.
Yeah. And for me was big part, small school, just the integration of the flipped classrooms, being so close to be able to interact with the pharmacy students, and just the support of the faculty were big reasons why.
All right, some programs notify students after interviews if they're planning to rank them in the match program. Just yes or no, not a specific rank number. Is that the case for KGI?
No. We don't engage in that level of conversation. So.
Great. Answers that. Next question, what did you do as a genetic counseling applicant to stand out during the application process and in interviews?
For myself, I created a book. Well, first of all, I wanted experience with genetic counseling. So I actually worked for a genetic screening company when I was still living in San Francisco. So I worked there and I got a lot of experience in terms of like learning about prenatal screening, about carrier screening, cancer screening. So that was good in terms of solidifying that this was kind of the career that I wanted to go in. And also it was great for networking opportunities. So, you know, if you are working for whatever you may do, just try to find like an area to just speak to as many genetic counselors as Nicole touched on earlier. I also created a book club. I think that was part of the reason why I may have stood out. I don't know, I should ask my directors. Yeah, I started a book club that was at the company that I worked on. So don't be afraid to initiate something because you will find support even if it's just a few people. So my book club was focused on understanding patient perspective. So reading books by patients affected by conditions and diseases.
I started a blog about genetic counseling and the application process because I noticed that I struggled to find materials that gave me more information about what programs we're looking for and what the application process was like and what to talk about in your personal statements, what to wear to your interviews. So I started a blog. I think that was something that made me stand out. Yeah, that was my big one.
Do any students conduct summer clinicals at an external site abroad or close to home?
So yes, all of our sites are external. We are not affiliated with a major medical center. So just by the very, just by the very nature of our program, all of our sites are external. And so yes, this past summer, we had a student up in Seattle. We had a student who was in Cincinnati, as well as Dayton. And so, and that because of the structure of the program during the second year, one of our students actually even stayed in Seattle for her second rotation, which we can, in the fall. But she did so based on her availability to come down to participate in the professional and psychosocial development courses, which is essentially an all-day on campus every 3 to 4 weeks. And so that there are opportunities for travel, provided that it does get extremely complicated, but yes, that there are opportunities. And we are right now really trying to work on a legal or affiliation agreement with a hospital in England to provide an international opportunity for one of our current second years. And so there are a lot of factors to consider, but part of the philosophy too is that this is your educational experience, and that we do really want to provide as many opportunities and for this to be as both enjoyable but really a fruitful learning experience, and sometimes that may also include going wrong.
Okay. So I know I told the panelists until 6:30, so if you have to step out, feel free. We're kind of mixing the student panel questions and the program leadership questions here, which is perfectly fine. In your experience, how much weight does the GRE score carry in admission?
Just because this is more of an insider's. So we actually, this will be our third application cycle, and every single year we reduce the weight of the GRE. And hopefully next year we won't even consider it. But there is actually very little evidence to show correlations between your GRE score and success, not only in graduate school, but specifically for a genetic profession. So we do still consider it. Obviously, we do require it, but we do not give it a significant amount of weight. If I can encourage you to do anything, it's to really, really focus on your personal statement. The more risks you can take with your personal statement, the better. We do like seeing transparency. We do like seeing vulnerability. We do like seeing who you are. And we appreciate that. And that really truly is something that we take most into consideration when we are reviewing our applications.
And then for MSGDA, we don't require
No
GRE.
GRE.
Yep.
Oh.
I'll say none.
Right, if you want to report your score, we'll look at it, but it's not required.
So for all three panelists, what is the most surprising thing you've learned so far in your program?
The hardest classes are usually my favorite ones.
Yeah.
That one I didn't expect to feel.
Yeah, and for me, usually there's, or at least an undergraduate, there would be 2 classes that I look forward to, and the rest of them, I was like, meh, just gotta get through. But I actually enjoy, for the most part, all of them in their different ways. So I'm happy with the course content that is required.
I don't know, I feel like a lot of it is a big surprise because you're just constantly learning. So I don't know, everything.
It's cool to have all classes that you want to take and are looking forward to attending. It makes learning more fun.
Okay, so what do you mean by flipped classroom?
Our professors will post video lectures. It's just a bunch of their slides and then basically giving their lecture over a video format. And then when we come to class, for our class meeting times, most will do a little review and then applying that knowledge either through clinical case studies or through class activities. And it gives us an opportunity to ask questions, to really solidify our knowledge of the material.
And it's not always a video, there's also like required readings or PowerPoints that aren't a video, just an assortment of information that you need to look through before class.
Okay, so next question. I know some schools have Hangout Space for their cohorts, for their students to be together and work together between classes and rotation. Is there a space like that on the KGI campus or off campus that the students go to?
I don't think there's a designated spot, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as like working with your cohort on homework, we often go to the Oasis, which is on-campus housing. There's also, in their new building, there's a lot of student areas for studying and couches and lounges, and we definitely take advantage of those.
Yeah, there's a really nice, it's really nice, the Oasis building that they have. There's Wi-Fi, there's everything that we basically need to be able to study, and it's quiet and air conditioned. So yeah, it's a really nice space. But I think for the GC students, we often just kind of go to each other's houses and study.
There's also like a 5-minute walk from campus, you can be at a coffee shop or a restaurant. So a lot of the times we'll work on homework there too.
Okay, next question. Around how many MSGDA applicants receive admission to KGI every year?
So the MSGA program is a little more flexible than the GC program because we don't have to do the rotation dance. We just have to find internships for every student. And so our aim for next year is to have 12 to 15 students. And so we do rolling admissions for MSGDA. So apply early, and we try to get decisions made pretty early. But that's the current cohort is 7 and 7, and we're looking to grow that for next year.
And likewise, currently we have 14 second years, we have 15 first years, and next year we will be taking 20.
How much experience in crisis counseling or other is usually enough to be considered competitive and get accepted?
Enough that you can talk about it in a way that's reflective and introspective. I hate putting like a solid number on it because it puts a lot of pressure on people. Because you could do 300 hours and get nothing out of it, and you could do 75 hours and learn way more about yourself and about crisis counseling than other people.
Yeah, I think by the time I was applying, I had 60 hours of crisis counseling at that time, which isn't really a lot. Maybe it's like a semester's worth, so half a year's worth. So like Nicole said, as much that you can get like enough experience to pull from in terms of talking, especially in interviews.
I had less than 60.
And from the program's perspective, we do not require it, and we do not penalize anyone who does not have crisis counseling. What is very important to be able to communicate or show or include on your CV are perhaps activities or experiences that can lend itself to some of the very same or similar qualities. And so it really has to do with the amount of exposure or willingness that you have to increasing your education or ongoing education about the genetic counseling profession. Shadowing is becoming increasingly difficult, and so we do encourage watching webinars or reviewing videos. But it's also, if you're going to do something like that, it's very important to be able to show that you're doing that. So make sure that you're documenting that on your CV. But as far as specifically crisis counseling, no, we do not actually require that. One of our current second years, she had been a repeat applicant, and I'll never forget it. She came and met with me in my office before that she applied just to get some more information about the program. And she had mentioned to me that some of the feedback from her application cycle the previous year was that she didn't have enough experience. And I found this to be unbelievably shocking because she had spent 3 years in the Peace Corps teaching biology and health education to teenage girls. And I just thought, wow, how amazing is that? And so she had to go back and do some crisis counseling just to be able to check off the box. And I'll be very honest with you all out there listening to this, is that it is very obvious to us who are reviewing your applications when you are just doing something to check off your box. And so I just want to encourage everyone to find things that are both enjoyable but also lend themselves seamlessly in many ways to what you know and understand about the genetic counseling profession, and then be able to verbalize those things and why that can lend itself seamlessly to the profession, or for the strengths that you can bring to the program and the profession.
Okay, I know there's a prompt for the personal statement, but is there anything that those reviewing them like to see? For example, a passion for genetics.
Well, I would think everyone applying probably has a passion for genetics. So that is not going to make you stand out. I think, Ashley's talked about it. It's really about authenticity, something surprising. We read a lot of these personal statements. And so things that make you look like every other applicant are not going to get our attention. It's things that make you unique and really show what kind of person you are and help us envision how you would be as a student here. Getting nodding here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why our personal statement was designed to read and look very different, reflect something very different than other genetic counseling program personal statement prompts. We want to be able to have a glimpse into the person that you are and what brought you to this moment, and to be able to do that efficiently. So in 1 or 2 paragraphs in each of your chapters, right? So to be able to show that you can use your words wisely and be efficient, but also show that show different sides of your identity and and essentially who the person that you are at this moment that you are writing the application and that you are applying. And then of course, it will be very, very important to have your last chapter or those last 2 paragraphs be very strong about why genetic counseling, and also specifically what is the contribution that you can make to this profession and also to the program. So not to reiterate, oh, I'm interested in KGI because of its location, but to really pull and look and to identify the things about who you are that can really your contributions to the field and to the program. And make sure you have a lot of people reviewing your personal statement.
Like spell check.
Yeah.
How many current GC students got into the program on their first try?
50, not even.
Oh,
Oh gosh.
I-
You guys haven't discussed that?
Yeah, we have.
Honestly, I don't know. I can make an anecdotal, I don't know. I don't
We
know.
spoke
We
about it
did.
first time, yeah.
Yeah.
many students won't.
Many students
Right.
are repeat applicants.
Don't
Many
be
students.
discouraged by
No,
that.
yeah. Many students are repeat applicants. It's a very competitive process for a very small number of seats. We are one of the bigger programs, but it's still very small. They're still small programs.
I'm telling it in my head, and I can conservatively say at least half.
Yeah.
Got in on their first time. I don't know the exact number.
Okay, so what barriers, challenges have you faced in finding, financing housing in Claremont and or near your clinical site? So it sounds like for our students. And how did you overcome these challenges?
Okay, so finance was definitely like hard because I've always been working my whole life and I had to give that up. But of course, there's, loans that you can take out, and the location of it. It's not, okay, coming from San Francisco, I have a very biased point of view. I do not think it is nearly as bad as it could be. But it's definitely, I don't think it's as expensive as other places in Los Angeles. So finding housing was not so bad for me because I was able to reach out to one of my classmates who was also from the Bay Area. And we found a place and we just really shopped around and had other people look for us. And we were able to do it that way. So we found housing pretty easily. It was just a matter of where we wanted to go.
Yeah, and I relocated from Kansas, and so I just pursued the Oasis, which is connected to the school, just because it was the easiest option to find and nail down when you are several states away. So, and I use student loans to help with that. So.
my plan for LA, I didn't really move from where I was situated in Southern California, so I didn't have to like coordinate housing. My plan for housing in LA, I fortunately have a lot of friends who live in LA, and I've pretty much made verbal non-binding contracts that they will be my home for at least 5 days out of a week. But other than that, I've heard like I have some friends who are in med school who do rotations like all around Southern California, and they've even looked in at doing Airbnbs because they also have pretty brief rotation periods. And you can try to find Airbnbs that are pretty cheap in LA.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna wrap the questions up. I can answer a few of them. So yes, there is on-campus housing available. If you Google KGI Oasis Commons, they have a wonderful website which talks about the different options and prices for that. The interview day for KGI for GC students, all of our interviews this year will be in March. And you'll be at KGI for about a half day, and you'll meet with different faculty and other genetic counselors who partner with KGI. And you'll have the opportunity to speak with quite a few of them, and it's kind of a day where we get to know you, and then you also get to know KGI and current students as well. So we always try to include them. They're a great resource and great ambassadors for our program. Should interviews with genetic counselors be included somewhere in the application? If so, where should those be documented? You definitely want to include those, and you can include them on your CV. So that can be an attachment to your application that you'll want to include.
We do require CVs.
Yes, so CV is required, so you can include that on there. We'll definitely see that. And then, are there GTA positions or scholarships that KGI offers?
Yes, so we have a few TA positions available. Once you're a second year, you can TA for the first year courses, so they're not available as a first year student. And then there are scholarships in the GDA program and the GC.
And there's also graduate assistant position, so it's not a TA, but you would be working in, you know, the admissions office or student affairs or another place on campus. So I want to thank our current students for coming. I know it was a little bit longer than what we anticipated, but we love getting all these questions. And I know that our prospective students love hearing from you. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.